Yo, what up, y'all? And welcome back to another installment of UX Life. Now, today is going to be fairly busy. We got some designs to finalize, we have quite a few meetings, I think a couple of working sessions today, and a design critique, which I think is going to be the topic for today, dealing with design critique and feedback. Now, the feedback and critique I'm talking about doesn't necessarily refer to what you receive from users and people that you expect to use your designs, but more so from stakeholders like other designers, your PMs, and then also engineering in order to move towards a final implementation that works for everyone. But I need to get into a few things before I get into my first meeting, but I will check in with you all in a little bit. All right, so just finished up that meeting and super productive. It was a design critique with all of my fellow designers on my team and productive. I didn't present anything, but I listened in, tried to provide a little bit of feedback, and it was a good session. So let's go ahead and get into that. So, with internal feedback, you're going to get your feedback from your fellow designers, and then you're going to get the type of feedback from your PMs and engineering. Now let's start with the designers because I'm just coming fresh off the design critique. So we're very focused on interaction models, user experience, and aesthetic. So that's what we're thinking about when we're processing presented designs and getting ready to give feedback. And one big thing you will need to do is provide enough context to your fellow designers. They may not necessarily be working on the same project with you. They may not be privy to the conversations you've had with engineering or PMs around certain logistics around what needs to happen for the designs. You need to provide sufficient context into, some of the things you've been facing as far as problems go, and then also some of the feedback or the type of feedback that you'll be looking for. And so typically, with that amount of context, they don't get the full story, but they have enough in order to give you feedback that will be useful for you. And so things you might hear from fellow designers are things like dealing with aesthetic in the sense of adhering to a design system, adhering to cohesiveness with things that they're working on, because they might be working on things with similar patterns and similar components to what you're working on. Could be a table, it could be modals, it could be other little elements of the design that they share with you. They just want to make sure that it's consistent across all digital interfaces, and so that's going to be super useful as far as the feedback that they're giving you. Additionally, they may get into some of the interaction models, like you may be thinking of one interaction model for completing a certain task for a user, but they may have a different idea of something that might be able to work better, something that makes a little bit more sense in their minds. And so it's good to kind of feed off of their feedback in that way to kind of say, okay, they're looking at this a little bit differently than I am. Maybe this is a good model for solving the problem that we're trying to solve. And so those two types of feedback are kind of the ones you'll get from fellow designers. We are a very particular bunch. We obsess over things like pixel perfection, interaction models. Is it similar to something we saw on Dribble or Behance or some other type of inspiration feed? So just know that the feedback will definitely be subjective. You may agree, you may not agree, but it is good to capture that feedback so that you can always come back to it and say, okay, maybe this way could work. So let me try an exploration with that, with the design. Now, feedback from PMs and engineering, that can be a little bit more implementation based from an engineering perspective on technical feasibility, how they're going to implement the designs, from a PM perspective on are the proposed designs hitting the requirements for implementation. And so that type of feedback will probably be more centered around, is this solving the problem and can we build it? Engineering will probably think along the lines of, yes, you've designed from a design system. Does this match our components? Does this match the technical capabilities that we have in the back end? And can we link things up properly? How are we going to implement these designs? Are there any red flags for them in the designs that might pose a problem in the development process. For PMs, they're looking for, are they hitting the requirements defined in the requirements doc? They usually come to you at the beginning of the project and say, these are the things that the design needs to accomplish for our users and for the business. And so as they're looking at your designs, they're measuring up against that. And if there's some things that might present a problem, they may flag those things. And then they're also kind of the liaison between the designers and the engineers, saying, hey, this is hitting the requirements, but engineering, is this all technically feasible? And so it's all kind of a synergy between the three of you, your PM and your engineering team, in order to make sure that what you've designed can be implemented. And so looking at it from that lens, just know that some of the feedback you receive from fellow designers will kind of conflict with some of the feedback you receive from your PMs in engineering. Other designers might suggest different interaction models or different types of components, or leverage different techniques, but those might directly conflict with technical feasibility, or is that satisfying the necessary requirements? So you kind of have to weigh all of the feedback against each other in order to understand, okay, this is what I can actually achieve in the designs based off of everything that I've heard. And so that's super important to think about as you're receiving this feedback and trying to update your designs based off of the feedback that you received. But there's one last important point for you to consider as you're implementing feedback. Okay, so another important point when implementing design feedback, and I might even argue this is the most important point when implementing all the design feedback that you're getting from both your design teammates and your cross-functional partners. And that point is, trust your design instincts. Trust your design intuition. You're probably going to receive a lot of different types of feedback, and I have personally seen it from colleagues, teammates, that, sometimes that starts to get to your head as far as you second guessing some of the decisions that you've made in your designs, and then you get into the realm of analysis paralysis. But I think ultimately, as the designer owning your work, you should just trust in your design intuition. Now, I'm not saying disregard the feedback that you get, but take in the feedback, evaluate it, test them against each other, understand the conversations that you've previously had with your partners in order to understand hitting different priorities and making sure things are feasible from a technology standpoint. And trust your gut. Do not second guess yourself. Just know that you are owning the work. Ultimately, it is your decision for how you want to proceed forward with updating your designs. And trust yourself. Don't get into analysis paralysis, and just make sure that you're moving forward with the direction that you think is best. Now, that may manifest itself in going in two different directions, and so you have to do two different explorations or two different solutions that you want to tease out. But ultimately, you'll be making that decision based off of the feedback that you're taking in and synthesizing. But with all that said, I'm gonna keep this video short. I just wanted to impart that to you all out there who, might be getting a lot of feedback from your design team members and your cross-functional partners. I hope this provided some value to you. I hope this helped a little bit. Go ahead and give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch y'all later.